Okay, hi Andrew. All right, so this is part two. So I'm going to summarize part one and then give you some things to sort of feel and things to take away from this. I appreciate you sending those videos, and this is kind of fun. Okay, so the first thing I talked about was grip. So if I looked at your right hand, this hand was pretty much where we want it. But this right hand, the thumb was going straight down the shaft. And I couldn't see any, so I'll come close for this, I couldn't see any sort of trigger finger in this right hand. So where I'd like this to be is this front hand, or this top hand, this thumb is going to be, so my left thumb is going to be slightly on the right side of the shaft. My right thumb is going to be slightly on the left side. So they counterbalance each other. And then you'll notice here that, if I come up close, there's a trigger finger here in my right index finger. So because I've got a good left hand grip, my right hand comes on and it's more in the fingers of my right hand. So that allows me to wrap this pad over the top of that thumb, and then this thumb goes on the opposite side of the shaft. But then there's a little gap for this trigger finger. It's just like I'm holding a gun kind of thing. It's right there, but I need this pressure on the shaft right here. There's a pressure point on the inside of this index finger. So the knuckle, where the knuckle meets the hand, there's a pressure point right there. And if I set that trigger finger in correctly, I'm going to have a lot more control over the club face. And also, the more underneath this hand is, the more it's pushing things to right field. So that's where those slices are, it's helping aid that sort of slice feeling versus getting this hand more on top, get this pressure set up correctly in the right index finger, and you'll know right where the back of the club head is, or where the back of the ball is, because you'll know right where that index finger is. So that'd be the first thing, is get this top thumb over and then play with this trigger finger and see what that feels like. Then I also mentioned you sort of had this right arm really locked out, so really rigid. And so notice if my right arm's soft, it aligns my shoulders, but if I tighten this right arm and straighten it out and push my hands down, then it gets me my shoulders aiming more to the left than my hips. So that's going to aid in the feeling of kind of cutting across it, because you're already cutting across it at setup. So what we want is the hands, they should be about a fist length away from my zipper in a perfect world. Now this would be too far, this would be too close, but there's some sort of comfort here, because I mentioned to you where your armpits were in relation to your feet, and I said you were this way. Well, if I push my arms down, it causes me to bend over more, because my inclination to the ground is different. So by raising the hands slightly, I'm shifting my center of gravity back to where it's balanced, because it's set up, you want to feel wherever you feel balanced, some athleticism in the knees, and then hinge from the hips or bend over at the waist, and the arms hang under the shoulders, but you hinge from the hips and you're balanced. So from there, you'll see there's about a fist length in between my hands and thighs, but I've also got balance, and I'm not pushed down leaning this way, I'm up here a little bit more, a little bit taller. So from hinge from the hips, but still feel equal balance throughout the feet, and then let the arms hang under the shoulders. So now you'll see that my armpit is more over the middle of my foot versus your armpit was way out here, kind of out in front of your feet. So bend from the waist, let the arms hang under the shoulders, and you'll be in a comfortable spot there. The other thing it set up was the hands, they were pushed down, like you know, and this was really stuck in the grass, this club head. But the hands were more in the center of your body. I'd like to see this left arm and the shaft be more in a direct line, so the hands are the hands would be on top of the golf ball, the club head is behind the golf ball. So the hands are right on top of the ball there. So my hands are a little more forward, puts this left arm in a stronger spot, gets this left wrist in a flatter spot, and it makes things easier to swing from the inside if I can soften the right arm and firm up the left arm. See, right now you have a soft left arm and a firm right arm. So a firm right arm and a soft left arm makes your shoulders point this way. A soft right arm with a strong left arm gets the shoulders back more square or even slightly closed, so that things can come more from the inside. Because ultimately, when you go from breaking 100 to breaking 90 to breaking 80, you're gonna have to start to know how to curve the ball from right to left to get a little more power, a little more distance to get those scores down. So this right arm, a little bit softer, this left hand a little bit more forward. It's gonna put you in a little bit better spot to hit the ball from. Won't be so rigid and cutting across. So those are big keys. Setup is huge because so many swing flaws aren't swing flaws. They're setup flaws that show up as swing flaws after the fact. Now, what I mentioned to you in the takeaway was that you kind of had the club really pushed down and this right arm really rigid, so the club was really stuck in the ground, which caused you to pick it up in the takeaway. And remember your head kind of going up as you took it away. So by getting the setup right, that's the first thing. But then when I set up to the golf ball, my club isn't hovering off the ground, but it's not stuck on the ground either. There's a light touch to the club head. So the club's just resting lightly on the grass. Because I want to be able to make this first part of the takeaway really smooth and really level. If I get it picked up, then I've changed this arc. So the golf swing works on an arc on an inclined plane. So if I pick the club up, I change that arc completely. So in order to have the biggest possible arc that you can have, we want to feel this club low and slow as you take it away. So light touch with the club head. It's not stuck on the ground, but it's not hovering either. It's just lightly touching the grass so you can take it smoothly away. Then we also saw, okay, what happens with your head? Because you notice that your head went down. So after you picked it up, the head went down and to the right. And then from the down the line view, it also went down and forward. So it got you way over your toes. So essentially in the golf swing, and this is why we do all those stretching movements, we're turning around our spine. So I'm basically, if you think of my tailbone as my center of gravity, I'm turning my hips this way to stay centered. I'm loading my ribs back and up to stay centered, and I'm pushing my arms away to stay centered. So the whole backswing is creating leverage for the downswing. But if I move over here and forward, I've changed how I'm visually perceiving the golf ball. So it's just inefficient movement. So the movements I want you to focus on from the program would be this movement with your club on your shoulders, but in a mirror or just looking at a golf ball, I want you to feel like you wind this up without moving this way or this way or this way. So I just want you to feel super centered, and then this hip don't restrict the turn. This side of the stomach, this right rib, this right shoulder, don't restrict any of the turn. Just let it all wind up around your spine while you stay centered. And then from this view, I'm winding up around my spine while I stay centered. So that movement, you know, there's 3 sets of 10 or 2 sets of 10 where you just rod on the shoulders to the top of the backswing. I want you to focus on that, but key in on the spine being the center point and the body turning around that spine to create leverage. And I'm cool if, you know, I mean, the greats, I mean, they turned so much that this left heel came off the ground. I don't mind that. I just want your visual perception to be the same throughout the entire backswing. I don't want it to change too much. It'll change slightly as you create leverage, but I don't want it moving side to side or down and forward. I'd rather have it stay dead centered while you coil. So any of the movements from the program, like front arm punch or the rod on the shoulders or anything else that has to do with the backswing, I just want you to focus on being centered and balanced. The players that can shoot in the low 70s and high 60s, you'll see it in all of them. There's very minimal movement of the head because they've refined their efficiency for so long that the head stays pretty steady. So their eyes aren't moving around, so they can meet the same bottom of the arc consistently. So if we can get this right hand grip in the right spot, that would be the first thing. Then we get the hands a little higher, not so down here, hands a little higher, a little more space right here. Then we soften the right arm a little bit so that the forearms are in alignment. I don't want this right arm rigid so it puts my shoulders open. I want this right arm soft. Then the hands a little more forward as I raise them, so we want to lift them up and move them forward slightly. And I'm talking an inch up, an inch forward, not too much. I don't want you to be up, you know, drastic. So a little higher, a little more forward. Now this left arm's in a strong spot, this right arm's in a softer spot. Okay, if we can get there, then this light touch, this club's got a light touch on the grass, and then as I wind up, I'm trying to stay as centered as possible so that I can get deeper while I turn, so now the club can come more from the inside versus if this is rigid and this is pushed down, everything's cutting across it. So we soften the right side, get the left side a little more forward, and that's going to allow you to come at it from a different place than you're used to. So if you have any questions on any of this, please feel free to reach out to me anytime, and we'll keep building it from here. But if we can get the setup right and get the center of gravity not moving around too much, then I can see your scores coming down really quick. So thanks again, and I appreciate it.